Hello guys and girls, welcome back to the Falcon YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing really well. So we are back with the full uploads. I hope you've been enjoying the behind the scenes content that we have been releasing lately. So appreciate all the comments, all the kind words as well that a lot of you have been sending in. Honestly, that does not go unnoticed, but very excited to get into the episodes that we've had in place and we've been working on and storyboarding for a while, just providing that value for you guys and girls on your trading journey. So if you're new to the channel, make sure that you do subscribe so you're always in the loop, and just flood us with the comments. Give us your insights as to what you feel that you would like to see in your journey. And today's episode, I want to get into something that we've kind of touched on before, but I think I want to go into more of a structured approach as to why these three things are important. Essentially, these are three habits of successful traders, but what I'm going to go into is the processes leading into that. These are absolutely crucial. So regardless of how you're looking at the markets, regardless of how you're trading in the markets currently right now, this is going to be very key for you. So make sure that you do pay attention as we get into those details. Without further ado, let's start off with number one. So number one is journaling. Now, if I talk about firstly my earlier experience in trading. So when I first started, it was 2008. It was in the period when we had the crash and things like that. I started off in stock. So I took one of those kind of 2-3 day courses where it was kind of intensive. They teach you everything about pretty much everything there is to know about the technical side of it. You've got to understand, the technicals you can learn, that's the easy part of it. It's all of the mindset and the day-to-day processes that keep you consistent in the long run. But what I found in the earlier stages is that I didn't really listen that well, and I didn't journal as much. I would journal a few things, but I didn't take it as important as what I thought it was. I was just working from my mind. I just thought, well, surely, I can identify in my head if I'm repeating that same mistake. But you've got to realize you've got to see it for yourself. So essentially, number one, journaling. At Falcon, we actually have our own performance analyzer. So it's something we've been working on for a while, and we're developing it and we are tweaking. It's absolutely been a game changer for how we've structured it to figure out people's tweaks. But let's say, for example, you're a trader, trade different style, different strategy, a good old Excel journal that is formulated. That's going to be more than enough, and especially if you want to approach longer term investors, that you want to have that there so you can track that all there, or you can use third party things, really entirely up to you. But it's not just having the consistency of the results, it's more so actually having something else on top of that. So it's one thing having the numbers, but you also want a visual representation of that as well. So let's say you're a trader and you've got none of those. You want firstly the journal, so you want to track it in Excel, something really basic like that. And then you want something else that's going to help with that, which is you can use either Notion, you can use Evernote. A lot of people use Notion and Evernote. You can really use anything you want, but those, I highly recommend that you go and check those out. That way, you've got a visual representation of your before trades, your after trades, and you can see it all the way through. So you've kind of got the numbers and you've got the screenshots all the way through. And that way, it's good for you from a benefit perspective, because the way you break through and you make those little tweaks, and essentially you just don't waste loads and loads of time, which quite frankly I did. I wasted pretty much a few years. I could have shaved off a couple of years if I was treating this like a business, if I was focused on that respect. But essentially, once you've got that visual representation, you're going to be able to see whether you're making the same mistakes again or not. So for example, you may be taking similar trades that are undoing a lot of your hard work, but you don't realize it in that actual moment, and you keep repeating that same mistake. So what we want to do is that we want to pattern break that, and the way you do it is bring it to your awareness. How do you bring it to your awareness? You journal. So you've got your numbers and you've also got a visual representation of that. So then you can see, right, hold on a minute. I seem to be taking that same trade where I'm trying to catch the reversal all the time and I'm not waiting for that criteria. Is it due to FOMO? Is it due to a lack of understanding? Maybe you need a little bit more technical work on your trading. Maybe you need to actually understand however it is you trade, for example. Maybe you need to understand how to get into the market, your execution. It could be your pre-trade checklist. So you see what I mean? I'm drilling my way down to figure out what could it be. But if you're just doing the same mistake over and over again and wondering why you're not actually breaking through or getting results, it's probably because you've got nothing to go off. So I highly recommend, if you're serious about this, Then journaling, take it very seriously. The moment I took journaling seriously, everything started to progress. So I highly recommend that you do that. So that is number one, guys and girls. And also just a nice little bonus tip on that you can do. If you're somebody who you feel like you really struggle with the psychology side of it, remember, consistency is a state of mind. It's not just you getting consistent results in a strategy. If you're not a consistent person, if you're not consistent in your habits, if you're not consistent with your processes, it is unlikely you will be consistent in the markets. Consistency is you. You have to be a consistent person to be able to develop consistency. They're congruent with each other. So definitely do that. And one way for you to ensure that you're moving towards that is to track your emotions. So you can also you've got your Excel journal, you've got your Notion or your Evernote, so you've got the numbers, you've got the visual. Then what you want to do is you want to be tracking on a daily or weekly basis. It's really up to you, whatever works best for your psychology, that you're tracking your emotions. How did you feel that way? How did you feel that day? Or how did you feel that week? How was your emotions that month overall? So if you consistently reflect, you'll be able to gauge how are you feeling on an emotional aspect. You can even do this day to day. I mean, just every single day, at the end of the day, just write down from a scale of, let's say, 1 to 10, how do you feel in terms of emotions from, really negative and really optimistic on that type of scale. So if you can do that, that way you're able to track, right, for this whole week, you can look back in 7 days and say, right, 3 out of the 7 days, I was actually right in the negative state. I was really a 1 or a 2. And if you can just work on being that little bit better each day in improving yourself, because it's you versus you at the end of the day, watch how you start to feel more optimistic and you start to feel more confident. And that's all it is. You're just moving the needle ever so slightly in your favor. And that's what's going to make you feel more confident and happier with your trading. So definitely take that serious. But guys and girls, that is number one. So what is number two? Let's get into that now. Right guys, so part 2, this is where we get into advanced self-review, so ASR. So what's the importance of ASR? Well, essentially you want to be reviewing yourself on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, 6-month and yearly basis. Why? It kind of is congruent with what I mentioned in the first point. So when I spoke about having that Notion template or the Evernote template, but I want to go into a little bit more detail as to why that's important. Now remember, when you're looking at your trades from a visual perspective, you want to have a full write-up of the trades that you take. And it's not always just the trades that you do take, it's the trades that you don't take. What we found and what I've experienced from myself in the earlier days of ASR, like I said, I didn't really take journaling that serious in the earlier stages. I didn't really take, any form of self-review that serious in the earlier stages. But then when I did, I could see visually, I keep repeating that same mistake over and over again. And what it came down to for me is I just didn't know how to deal with a certain scenario. And I thought I didn't have FOMO, but I did. I always thought that, well, I need to get it now because what if it turns around and then if a candle would just move slightly impulsively, I would then try and jump in. It was just a lack of clarity. I didn't have enough understanding and I was trying to combine about 5 different strategies at that point. So it was very, very confusing for me. But when I stripped it all back and went just to what I originally learned, which was patterns, stripped back all the indicators, everything else, just made it simple, that is when things started to improve. But if I didn't start taking advanced self-review seriously, I would have never been able to see that. And it came from being honest as well. I had to be honest with myself because I remember I used to talk to friends and some siblings about this when I was talking about certain trades. Let's say I would miss a trade, or I thought I missed a trade. I would look at it, then I would, kind of size up the risk to reward and all that kind of stuff. And I would look and say, right, look, I could have made it 20 to 1 here or a 30 to 1. I missed out on 30%. But then I realized I was just living in this hindsight. And you get a lot of these traders, they live in this hindsight mode all the time. And it normally comes from sometimes backtesting, because you backtest and you look at, wow, I could have made 100% in 1 month. And then you just infatuate over these returns that the reality in a real market at larger capital, it's not that realistic, right? We're not here to be infatuated over returns. Your return should be a side effect of your approach. Yes, you can hit big returns as a side effect, but to solely focus on that and then just infatuate, yeah, but I want to hit 30%, I want to hit 100%, you're not going to last long. You're going to lose in the long run, and I've seen so many traders come and go from that type of mindset. So what I found is being really honest with myself and not living in that hindsight. That was a game changer for me, because I was able to look at it. And the difference is this: you need to be able to look at that missed trade and say, would I have actually taken that trade? So right now you're seeing that trade, let's say 12% profit. And then you ask yourself, if I was just about to journal that trade right now and it was a 1% loss, would I still be happy taking that trade? Can you still be honest with yourself and say, yes, I would take that trade over and over again? Okay, so you take it over and over again. So why would you take it over and over again? If you for just one moment have to really think about that, then it's not a missed trade. That's just a hindsight trade. So you should be able to say, yep, it's this, you know, regardless of how you trade in the markets and how you're looking at it, you should be able to highlight each individual point, the case of evidence, the mechanics behind it, all of it, to be able to understand why was that a missed trade. And I've found and I've seen from hundreds and hundreds of trades, over thousands now, that when you can find the difference between a hindsight trade and missed trades, that is when you're moving in the right direction. That's when you can be honest, and it's normally when you're starting to become much more honest with yourself and say, look, I understand that trade worked out, it makes sense, but in hindsight, the reality of it is, would I have taken that trade, yes or no? And when you can have more yeses and be really honest and be really confident, that's when you start to move in the right direction. And even when you can just say, no, I wouldn't have taken that, that's good as well, because at least you're confident in the market, that you don't feel like you're living in this infatuated world of just chasing returns all the time. And then you'll get consistent as a side effect as well. So consistent mind, and at this part with your advanced self-review, the biggest thing I want you to take away is just be brutally honest with yourself. The more honest you can be with yourself, the better your results will be. So that's part 2, but I want to get into the last part now, which is accountability. Right guys, so the last part, accountability, this is crucial. This is single-handedly one of the most important things. If you don't have accountability, you can be successful, but it will just take you a lot longer. So if you have some accountability in your life, it's going to help very, very much. Have an accountability partner. So something that we introduced for a while in Falcon, which is an accountability partner. Now remember, you have to earn your way to have an accountability partner. You cannot come in to any community and just ask people to hold you accountable. You've got to put the groundwork in first. And the people that are going to hold you accountable, they want to make sure that you're on that level, you're on the level of your mindset, that you want to consistently grow and improve. It doesn't mean that someone that is doing better than you or more progressed, they can't hold you accountable, but you've got to show the initiative that you're someone they want to work with. Because you've got to understand, you're rubbing off on each other, and that's very, very important. So I would highly recommend that first, before you try and reach out for an accountability partner, put in the groundwork first, so that right, I'm ready now, I'm focused, I understand it, I've got some value to give, now I want to be held accountable to get to that next stage. Because accountability is key. And why is that? Well, when you've got someone to hold you accountable, it doesn't mean to, scream and shout at you and say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? It's more so someone that you trust and you respect, that you're on the same journey, same mission, similar mindsets, that's going to hold you accountable, so you can push each other. And if you are going through a patch, you can then pull that person up and say, right, what's going on? You was focused on this. How comes that's not happening? What do I need to do to help you? And vice versa. It's to both level yourselves out and bring you back to have that balance with your mindset, with your technicals, and with your goals. It's absolutely crucial. And that way you can have weekly check-ins, bi-weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins, and then you've got something to work towards it. Because sometimes all you need is that, right, I'm going to jump on that call in 2 weeks. I said I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I need to make sure that's done. Otherwise, I'm letting somebody else down. Not only are you letting yourself down, you're letting somebody else down. And that alone is going to hold you accountable, and it's going to push you. So in that way, when you find that you hold yourself accountable, you stop making the excuses, you stop blaming external things, and you actually look internally and realize that it's yourself. That's all it ever is. It's never the strategy. It's never something else. But guess what? In a world that we live in, who's going to blame themselves? What percentage of people actually blame themselves? Very, very, very little, because they're not self-aware enough to say, hold on a minute, is it me? But no, they have to look externally. And that's what the world does. It's always looking for something else. It's always pointing the finger, whether it's the economy or this and that. When you're held accountable, it's very, very easy to make sure that it's yourself, because you realize it. You realize, well, oh, I didn't turn up to the call. Well, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. And it's a lot easier for you to get into that mind frame as it's me. It's my responsibility, because it's like saying, oh, this tennis racket doesn't work. But then someone goes and gets a tennis racket and then is serving, something at 90 miles an hour. How is that person doing it? They've got the same racket as you. They have the same tools, the same resources. Why are they not blaming external things? Because they're looking internally. And that's what you need to develop. You need to develop the mindset of looking at yourself and not letting other distractions as an excuse of why you haven't got the results or why you can't do this. You will feel so much more empowered, guys and girls, regardless of what you're doing. Even if you're coming onto this channel for the first time and you're just thinking about trading and you're a business person or you're just an entrepreneur, holding yourself accountable, as you'll know, is the biggest key. So if you're doing that, that's going to level you up much higher than ever before. It's going to put you on higher vibration of frequency, and then that way you're focused, you're held accountable, you're not looking for any other blame, and you take full ownership, full responsibility. It is down to me whether I succeed, nobody else. And when you can take the tools and the resources in front of you and apply that mindset, watch how you start to progress a lot quicker than what you did before. It's crazy. You can be a completely different trader and a different person in 3 months. Does that mean that you're going to break through to consistency? Well, you can never guarantee that. Does it mean it's possible? Yes, of course. You could be making all the right steps. Remember, progression is never always measured in percentage. And it's kind of naive to think that you would do that, because you can be making no money, no percentage gains for a whole year, but you could have taken on so many things and made these tiny little steps of breakthroughs towards your consistency. And then out of nowhere, your mind just says, well, it's just clicking for me now. How do you go from just being inconsistent to consistent within 1 month? How does that even happen? It didn't happen within 1 month. It happened over a year. You just don't see it that way. All the groundwork that happened, that was every single day in, day out, maybe for 12 months. So this is why you cannot just judge yourself based off of, well, I'm not making 20% a month yet, etc. You have to look, how consistent have you been with your processes? Measure that. Measure how accountable you are. Measure how much you journal. Measure how much you do advanced self-review. Show me your processes. That's what's going to help you. And then you'll see how good that person is as a trader. Looking at their processes will define that. So guys and girls, I really hope you enjoyed these 3 tips, these 3 kind of habits. What you'll see from many, many successful traders, they'll do this a lot. They'll be journaling, they'll be making sure that they're held accountable, and they're making sure they're doing their advanced self-review, and they're always checking in with themselves. It's very, very simple, but yet we overcomplicate it. And if you don't have a process for it, well, then no wonder you're just coasting on by hoping you're gonna make it in Forex. That's not how it works. If you join the channel for the first time, I really hope you enjoy really just the black and white approach. There's no point in fluffing it all up. You just need to be focused and put the groundwork in. We're so focused on working smart and taking these hacks and shortcuts, you're forgetting to do the hard work that builds the strong foundations in the first place. So never underestimate hard work. It's always been there, and it trumps all. You can work smart after. You need to put the groundwork in first. But guys and girls, I really hope you did enjoy this episode. Let me know your number 1 takeaways, or anything that you've personally found that maybe I haven't mentioned that's helped you break through. Could be something very, very similar, or a little tip, a little thing that you do that's worked for you. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm looking forward to bringing out a series that we've been working on for a while that I think you're going to take a lot of value from. So again, let us know your number 1 takeaway in the comments. Have an incredible weekend ahead. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate the support. And again, by you investing into the channel, it invests back in you, and we absolutely love providing the value. So have an incredible weekend ahead wherever you are in the world, and I'll speak to you all soon. Take care, guys and girls.